All right, folks, we're going to get started here on the final section. Kind of a panel, not a roast, but a discussion. To just talk a little bit about a whole bunch of stuff related to life, Christian school, work, and so on. So we'll get there in a moment, but let's open this last section prior to a final praise section of singing with a word of prayer. Our Father in heaven, we come to you recognizing that you are the sovereign Lord over all creation and all areas of creation. And we thank you that that also includes the things that we study and the way that we interact with each other. We ask you to forgive us all when we fall short of how you would have us use the time you've given us to work, to study, to interact. But we also offer to you the praise when things really go well through the work of your Holy Spirit and honor is brought to your name. And today we thank you that we got to see a lot of that happening in a lot of different areas with a lot of different people, and we praise you for that. We thank you especially for this school and the history it has and the many people who years ago really took some incredible steps of faith and said we need to have a place where your name is central in the entirety of the educational process, and we praise you that they did that. We pray that we would have the same strength of vision and faith in you. Now we ask you to bless this discussion as we look back and hopefully look forward as well. Give us a great time. In Jesus' name, amen. We also, by the way, may even have, do we, Senor? We even have people watching, I think my wife, on Facebook Live. I feel like a televangelist. And now for the home audience, you can mail in your donations. For each $95.99, you get this bronze eagle made of plastic with bronze paint. No. What I would like to do at this point, in order of age, no, I don't care, is ask our 4 panel humans to come forward, please, and sit on one of those things, if you would like. Even if you wouldn't like, it would be nice. And I will introduce them from most important to, no. As a brief introduction, Jeffrey Smeese is the son of Roger and Lenore Smeese, and he attended here. Again, his parents were a couple of those strange people that put themselves out in a somewhat tenuous position and said, we're going to send him to this place. So Jeff Smeese is here. He is an architect and has been for many a moon. Yeah. His children attended here. Tyler, the last one, graduated 5-6 years ago, something like that.
7.
We're getting older. So there, we'll get to him in a second. Mr. Jason Adi, the class of 94. Yeah. My nephew drew a lot of pictures for him in Spanish class. Has nothing to do with Spanish, but it is the true statement. Jason happened to marry our neighbor. That would be Janelle Walcott, who is a sister of my son-in-law. And Jason has some interesting perspectives on this notion of how do I work for God in a time when the economy ain't so good. And now we have Ben Johnson, the class of 90-something, 7, the class of 97. He was here, he was the first student I met at school here. You and Corey Sestrudi. Yeah, Corey was busily ruining our 2 computers, and you were regretting your mullet.
At the time I wasn't.
Mullet's been in style by 91. So
Now,
Hey, man.
Ben Johnson went to Cornerstone and then to Westminster Seminary West in Escondido or something like that, and has been our youth pastor for 7 years or so, and heading off to Thailand to work on the mission field there with Mission to the World. And then now on. Okay, first that would be Carolyn Doss, who is my daughter, my oldest child. She's coming here not alone. She is currently carrying a human being, just a wee little one. Number 5, it's good for job security. Carolyn graduated in '01 from this school, went to Trinity Christian College, got a degree in nursing. In fact, the night her oldest was born, she was finishing off a shift, so she got her computer in bed, did the thing, and had a baby. So we have 4. What fall did you start? 89, Jason? Yeah. We have the 70s, the class of 73. Just barely the 80s and into 94, 97, and '01. And what I want to do is if you have questions that come up as we go along, please shout them out because there are no mics out there. We don't have mic runners like we do at church. That's okay, you don't need that cell phone. And I just have a bunch of questions. There are 2 mics that can be shared here. And we'll see if this goes where it's going. The goal in the long run is to talk about the Christian place, the Christian in the workplace, and also whether this school had anything to do with that. Or didn't, maybe. But we'll see where it goes. And I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I will not bring up embarrassing stories. Well, I already did. I brought up the mullet. I'm sorry. But what I would like to start with, and you guys can take it kind of at will, okay, if you're willing here. So we got the year of graduation. Who had a favorite course of study at this school? Anyone? Any class that you look back, if you can remember, which class did you really like? None whatsoever. Okay, we move on.
I'll go. I liked human anatomy with Mr. A. That was pretty great, and we dissected stuff, and it was a small class, which I kind of liked. And history topics with my dad, because I could argue with Josh Van Drunen, and I disagreed just for the sake of disagreeing, and that was pretty great.
It's possible they won't have a memory of one.
I actually took drafting at South High School, so that's kind of where I was.
That's
leading.
counterproductive to what we're doing. Folks, we like to celebrate South High.
We didn't have it here, but I enjoyed math too. I mean, that was always a favorite subject.
Who taught math back then?
Mr. Radeville.
Okay.
I did take drafting here, actually, my freshman year, by the time it came around. We were working on computers by then, believe it or not. Most of it was pencil, but I really enjoyed 2 classes, physics, and I never got into that. I know, that was a class I really enjoyed, because in part we got to go to Great America, and we built things out of sticks, which is a whole lot of fun. But the whole process of doing the puzzles of all the formulas and stuff was a lot of fun to me. And then also, I thought English class, we had a character of an English teacher, Mr. DeYoung. And so maybe I shouldn't tell this, we had a game of writing down all of his famous quotes completely out of context. Yeah, and there was a running total of it, so.
By the way, there are things that Mr. DeYoung said that no context would help anyway.
I think my 2 favorite classes were lunch break at study hall.
And who taught those?
Yeah. No, I enjoyed band. We had Mr. Bill for a band teacher. I enjoyed actually coming back for a few years after graduation and helping out pep band for a little while. But yeah, classes were not my thing.
Okay, just asking. And by the way, in case you're wondering what does band do for me, Jason and his wife really are a driving force in our church's praise team. Jason is the default percussionist, really. Also a lead singer with so if you're wondering, those things, well, from there to pep band.
Band and choir.
Are we still using your drum kit?
No, that's new.
Okay, no, but at church?
Oh, at church, yeah.
Yeah, see, another thing. We get to use his drum kit at church. But that is a direct result of getting interested in music at a young age. Another question. Really quickly, do you have any particular memory of Christian High that jumps out? I know, going to South, but I story that's morally acceptable to relate that you can tell us? You don't have to. I've got a few, but
I think it was the first time I met you, because I never had you as a student, but I think it was one of those basketball games when I came back to play drums for it. And never met the guy before in my life. And he comes walking down the hallway, and he says to me, "You're Jason, right?" He introduced himself. He says, "Did you know that David Bowie was voted the best dressed woman in France in 1972? I really wish I would have had this guy for a teacher.
Well, I met my wife here, so that was a series of memories. But related to
what's your point?
I had, to make a very long story short, her friend liked me and my friend liked her, and we didn't know all that until I asked her to go out with me to the Christmas banquet. So in effect, we stole each other from each other's friends without knowing we'd done it. I was on the wrestling team, we still had it, and we were in the mezzanine, and the girls were practicing basketball. And of course, being a guy, I was watching her run up and down the court. And my friend, who was also on the wrestling team, who wanted to date her, was watching me, and I could feel his glare, and I looked over. And now, he's about 100 pounds lighter than me, and he says to me, "You want to wrestle?" I knew exactly what this was about, so I let him have that one.
On the serious side, when I was a sophomore, we only had 20 kids in the school. And one of my best friends died in a swimming accident. Okay, Dan DeMaster. He was a close friend of mine, and it made a lasting impact on me and what I would do with the rest of my life, really. And as well as I met my wife here as well, so that was pretty important as well.
Was I right that that's Ivan's brother?
That is Ivan's brother. Yeah, younger brother. Yeah. So
I had a picture of him at the
he was at the groundbreaking.
ceremony.
He's actually in the trophy case in the front there. There's a picture of him in there. But yeah, he was swimming with some other friends at Lake Allen. He was a farm kid, so he really didn't have great swimming skills, and he never made it back from the raft that afternoon. So that was pretty tough on our class at that time.
I'm going to start caroling off with a memory and see if you can finish it. Mr. Alon's over the loudspeaker. The National Weather Service
It said there's weather outside. Weather.
has declared that there is a weather.
That was the start of a tornado drill, I think, right?
Yeah, there is a weather.
It was very
There is a
concerning.
weather outside.
Yeah. One of my favorite memories was probably memorizing God's grandeur. Do you guys still do that? It's just, if you started, I can still do it. It's just in your brain. The other is probably in band. We had a little fun in band every now and then, not always just playing the instruments. And I was a clarinet, and Julie Bach was sitting on the back risers in her chair, messing around, just getting too rowdy. And she straight off the back into her chair. We all laughed, and she was really, really mad because I think she locked a timpani or something that's back there. That just sticks in my brain as I look at the band room.
Oh, okay. I think we'll move on here. What did the school do? And we may go back from less serious topics if we have extra time. Did the school help you prepare what not to do? You know what I'm saying? Or help you see God's calling for you in any way, shape, or form? Again, I have some of my own, but did this school in any way help you say, forget that noise? Or maybe? And if so, in what way? It doesn't have to. Just ask me.
For me, it's pretty important with the work I do. As Mr. Guest mentioned, I'm an architect, but my expertise has to be with churches. So I do a lot of churches. I do Catholic churches, Lutheran churches specifically, Reformed, Presbyterian, Baptist, talking to a Pentecostal church right now. And really, every time I meet a new client, especially in a church client, I can relate to my Christian grade school, high school, college, and Christian background, which is pretty important in the work that I do. So not specifically Christian High, but Christian education in general. I think a lot of people appreciate that and know the sacrifice that it takes to come from a family that does that. So it's pretty important to me.
Well, I guess I'll go. I think during my time here, I became an expert at what not to do. I was the partier, wanted to have fun. And like I said, I didn't have any favorite subject because there were no subjects that interested me. I was interested in having fun. But one thing that this school, I think, helped me with, and continues to help me with, it's not only just the school, I think it's the embodiment of just that structure. That it revolves around prayer, that it revolves around family, that it revolves around hard work, discipline, those kinds of things that as I entered the workforce right after high school, I knew to go on to college because I knew that I would party myself right out of school. So that was not in the cards for me. But just that atmosphere of hard work really helped me when I entered the workforce. And that's one thing that I remember.
Something that I learned from going to Christian school throughout, so that's all that I have experience with, that's all I know, is you learn constantly how Jesus Christ died on the cross for us, and we are loved, and we are to show love to others. That directly correlated into my first job as a nurse. Doing that full-time, I worked in the inner city of Chicago and didn't always deal with the most lovely people, the people you would cross the street to go away from. You don't want to interact with these people, but to show love to them, to show Christ to them. They needed to see it whether they knew it or not. And I was a labor and delivery nurse, so in kind of a scary time of their lives, that to show Christ's love, and they could hopefully see a difference, even if I didn't specifically say anything about Jesus or anything about the Bible or anything like that. They could see just love and acceptance coming from me. And now even when I'm just at home with little kids, just the patience to continue to deal with that and not snap at them. So just being surrounded by Christian values and principles is so important. You can get caught up in the subjects and the studies and the things you have to memorize and all of that, but just constantly having the Bible and God's Word, in a sense, shoved down your throat is such a good thing, such a blessing. It really is. Even if you don't see it now, just you will appreciate it someday, I promise. And it's hard to see that when you're in the setting that you're in and you're, I just want to be done, I just want to graduate or whatever. It's such a blessing that a lot of people don't have. So be grateful and take advantage of what's provided to you.
I'd say do spend your time gleaning what, as you take classes and you say, man, I really enjoy this and I'm good at it and I want to do some more of it, glean those things. Find those things where you find yourself gifted and you enjoy doing, and chase those things. Spend your time on those things in life, and don't waste your time trying to be something or somebody that just God has not made you to be. One example for me, I always think biology was it was a bad subject for me. I didn't enjoy it. I could do it, I could get by, and I've always thought to myself, could I have been a doctor? Sure, I could have been a doctor, but I would have been absolutely miserable. I would have been trying to force myself into something that I just don't want to do and don't enjoy. And I think the lesson is figure out what, as you spend your time here and you have the ability to try new things and learn different things, as you pick up those things that you can see yourself good at and enjoying, run with those and spend your life honoring God with those things, and don't worry about the other things that could be a distraction from that.
I don't know if you have such a thing. Don't make one up. Do you have someone that was especially helpful in, let's maybe hope the parents are, but somebody outside of a parent who really helped you see, God's calling me to something like this, even if it's not nursing or whatever. It's somebody that said, okay, you're this kind of person, and now we're going to move you along. Were there people that you can name and tell why that is the case? I could go piles. You don't have to. Henry Fickert, without me ever telling him, was one. Just by the way he clobbered us in catechism. In a good way. He always had a smile while he clobbered us. But he demanded stuff of me that other people weren't. And that helped me to say, I better do a little growing up here. And the stuff he taught me, I still remember. Mr. DeYoung was somewhat the same way, other than a parent thing. But somebody that helped you move from maybe high schoolish to the next step. Think about that for a second.
Is it okay if it's a college professor?
I don't care.
Okay.
They're people.
Yeah, sometimes. I had a professor. I actually went to school to study missionary aviation. I wanted nothing more than to hang out in a hangar, turn a wrench, go flying once in a while, and do it for the kingdom of God, which is a good thing. And I still love aviation. I still want to somehow use it in ministry to some degree. But I had a professor, I remember one day, I don't even remember what class we were in. Oh, he was like history and something else. But he said to me, I don't know why you're wasting your time in that aviation program. You've got so many more gifts than to be a glorified bus driver. And I went, I was ticked. I was really mad that day. But as I look back, I think a number of the things that God was called, and to be honest, I spent a lot of the rest of the next few years trying to run away from what I think was God telling me, I want you to do something else with your life. I describe it as the Jonah part of my life. I was doing everything I could to get away from having to write sermons every week and do the pastor thing and that sort of thing. And I tried to stay in aviation as long as I possibly could. And it wasn't until I got a job just out of seminary that was absolutely, utterly miserable in aviation that I thought was going to be awesome. That I finally realized, I think he might have been right. Not that flying in airplanes a glorified bus driver, that was a bit mean, but he made a point to me with that.
For me, for the nursing part, Dewey Otten, I don't know if any of you guys know him. He was the camp nurse at Camp Calvin a while ago. Maybe he still is, for all I know. And just chatting with him when I was a counselor there, he was a neonatal nurse practitioner in Green Bay. And I was like, well, that sounds kind of great, getting to do nursing with little babies that are sick and whatever. So I job shadowed him, and that kind of shoved me into being really interested in that kind of thing, and then focusing in on that on labor and delivery later on. So that would be somebody that influenced me. But then now my job is staying home with all the little yahoos. I would say just watching my parents and how they had all of us kids, and mom was home with us, and it kept life, the chaos to a minimum, and just being the grounded one, being at home, and that's what we want for our kids. And so I guess that's that. And then there's lots of other people now at church that I am involved with, whether it's friends or friends' parents or coffee break Bible study type leaders that you kind of follow in their footsteps and want to be like, and see Christ working in their hearts, and you go, oh, well, that might be somebody that I could kind of latch on to glean wisdom from them.
I don't know that I had anyone that specifically helped me on a career path. Like I said, I went to work right after high school, but my wife Janelle was definitely the person in my life that has challenged me to grow spiritually, to just seeing her focus and dedication and her maturity, but just even in these last 5 years too, it's been amazing to see her growth, which also just challenges me to do the same. And I guess I don't know that I went through a Jonah period like from what Ben was describing, but I made a lot of bad decisions in my past, and I think going through what I'm going through now, I'm actually between jobs right now. I don't know if some of you that go to church with me know that. I'm trying to listen for God's voice right now, and having someone in my house that is that spiritually grounded, and having other people in the church and in my family that have had that structure coming through and going to church, it's just a really comforting thing. So.
have a question for Mr. Smees, kinda. I don't know from architecture. What are challenges that come, I worked 5 years factory work. I can tell you some of the challenges that come at a guy on the line in the factory. Quite a few, I can tell you. What challenges does a Christian face in the world of architecture? Is there, I mean, it's not just calculating and drawing. Are there things that kind of push you, or you have to fight back, or anything like that?
Well, I'm blessed because I get to work on churches, so I really work with a lot of good Christian people. But I think the communication skill between people is probably the thing that is probably the most important. So even if you don't like English, you don't like speaking, those skills go a long ways in going into whatever occupation you want to do. I could be a great designer, but if I can't talk with people and explain my design, it doesn't go very far. But in most cases, I'm working with other good Christian people, and I guess the one thing I've learned to appreciate is Christian faiths of all kind, and how God has worked in their lives, and they're always very outspoken in why they're working for their church and what they're interested in doing for their church. And so they've always blessed me probably as much as I'm able to bless them with my talents. But something Ben said before that I think I would like to share just a quick story on was about listening and what God is telling you to do and finding your niche, if it will. Some of you maybe know my son Tyler. He graduated now from Calvin, but he went as a business major. Great. Didn't know what he was going to do with it when he got out. And he also did a lot of golfing. Didn't know what he was going to do with that either when he got out. And he worked for a number of nonprofits over a couple of internships in the middle of his summer years of his junior and senior year. And one was it's called Mel Trotter Ministry, which is something like a very large Salvation Army in downtown Grand Rapids, which was there before Salvation Army was even around. So they started that ministry, and he worked for them. And because of his golfing at Calvin, golfing at Christian High here, he was put in charge of a golf fundraiser. And so he helped put that together, and then at the very last minute they needed somebody to fill in his spot, so they said, go play along. We're going to put you with somebody that maybe can help you. He's going, I don't know what that means, but he did, okay? So this guy on his tour, or the group that he was with, was kind of asking him what he liked to do, and he said, well, I like to golf and I like to do business, but I don't know how to do it together. And the guy made a suggestion to him. And he started looking into that, and basically he has now started a nonprofit, something for underprivileged kids, disadvantaged kids in the heart of Grand Rapids. It's called The First Tee. But he uses his business skills, he uses his golf skills, he teaches golf, but he teaches Christian values to kids that otherwise would never have heard that. And it's only because he listened to people that were pushing him in one direction, somebody else that was saying, try this, do that, and where his talents were. That's what Ben was saying too. So if you like something, maybe you don't know what you're going to do with it, but God probably has a better plan for you than what you can even imagine. So keep that in mind.
You can't write that stuff, can you?
Yeah.
That's a long ways from standing in the rain in Heartland Hills to running that sort of a program. That's fantastic. Anything else? Carolyn, do you remember, I think you told me one of your first nights as a nurse, you had like 3 women come in with like the description, like you said how hard it was or interact. I care for these women, and yet, do you remember this? You had like 3 of them in your first night. There was one woman at 28 having her 8th child, all crack babies or something like that.
Yeah.
But just how do you minister to folk? Like, what has that done to you? How did that happen, and so on?
I look back at that as some of the most fantastic parts of my life, and maybe it shaped me, maybe it didn't, but just you feel so needed to an extent, which is a good feeling every now and then, to feel like you can be successful and help people that really need it. I think most of the ladies that I would deal with would be 20 or under. It would be their 3rd, 4th, 5th kids. There would be no fathers around. So some are scared, some are mean, some are horrid, some are lovely, and they still need help. They need it really bad. And whether it's just being the nurse for the night, whether it's just chatting with them. Some of them, I worked a night shift, so it was 11 at night till 7 in the morning, or 7 at night till 7 in the morning, and that's when a lot of deliveries happen. Just being able to, kind of like Mr. Smith said, be able to communicate with people, be able to listen well. And I don't know that I did any life-changing things, anything like that, but at least for one night they felt like they had a friend, they had an ally that was on their side. Sometimes I'd have to be the bouncer and keep people out that they didn't want in. Just, it's different than I would have thought. There's a nursing job, but then it comes with so many interpersonal things. So you learn maybe 10%, maybe 25% of your job at school and at college, but then the rest was all learned on the job. And everyone is going to be different, of course.
No, that's fine, you have a bouncer voice.
Yeah, I
Things
wanted
like-
to see Carolyn kick someone.
Carolyn.
I can be mean, I can be mean.
Just have a list of questions here. We've already got some, but as far as looking for these folk to the future, do you have, and I'm going to turn it back on us too as a school, but do you have specific sort of advice for these folk? Like things where you say, well, I'll give you one example from mine and then maybe that'll spin you off. When I was in and this is advice for staff, when I was in high school, I was allowed to not do a lot of stuff. Maybe that's why I harass some of you mercilessly to go here, do this or whatever. But like, Mr. DeYoung should have grabbed me by the throat and said, you will edit the newspaper. Or here I am taking another study hall. Mr. DeYoung should have said, no, you need to be in my ethics class. You're going in there. And I think in some ways in the 70s it was sort of, well, kumbaya. And I think that's how we got along pretty well. But at the same time, my advice to staff from that experience would be, don't be afraid to be very specific in direction. That's something. That's something I wish staff had done more of for me. Not that they're evil humans, but I mean, that was a different time. Do you have some advice either for the school, what kind of things do we need to do that you would like to see? Or for these guys heading out of here? There are a bunch of them leaving soon. Think about that.
I guess I'll start. I had the pleasure of listening to Chris and Ron in the front there with the whole painted rocks thing. You did. I'm assuming you did that with everyone here. That type of teaching, I don't think was here in early 90s. That was impressive. Listen to what your teachers are telling you. I mean, I know that they're the old fuddy-duddies that aren't cool and they don't know what's going on. I probably am too, but just listen to what they're telling you. That's great advice, and just try to take the time to listen to what the Lord is telling you what to do, because no matter what, doesn't matter the plans that we make. If we're going to rely on ourselves and if we're going to be self-centered, and which is what the world wants you to do, and if you think of all the advertising in the world and everything else, it's all, you deserve this, it's all me-focused. If you can go out in the world and put your focus on serving others, like Carolyn did in the hospital, and I think I was a production supervisor for about 10 years, and I think that's what helped me gain respect from the workers that I had under me, was that I was willing to serve them. Use those things and go out and prosper, I guess.
I'd like to add a perfect segue, and I think be good to each other. In the high school, I know people are different than you. Some are weird, some are not, whatever. Be good to each other, because you have to, you're told to, and because it's the people now that you think are important to you, they might be, but it usually doesn't stay like that. In how many years, one of my best friends now is somebody I was scared to death of. She was a senior, I was a freshman. Yeah, Her husband was scary. No,
He's
just-
scary.
no, she's not, but she was then. And so those are the people that, it's shocking who ends up being so very important to you later on in life. So be good to each other. You have to, and you should.
Kind of tagging on with what Jason said too, one of the things I've learned post-school is, well, both Carolyn and Jason were saying, serve other people. In the workplace, some of the most miserable times I've ever had is when people aren't serving each other. And you as an employee, if you get two things down. Number one, learn your own job, know what you're supposed to do, and know the job of your boss. That's number two. Because if you know your boss's job, you will understand why they are asking you to do certain things in a certain way, and you are serving them by understanding their role, so that when they ask you to do something, let me give you one example. I used to work for this printing company in Grand Rapids, and I was a delivery driver, right? I'd take these big boxes of printed goods and I'd drive them out to Steelcase and to the airport and all over town. And I remember one day, Steelcase specifically, I had to make a drop-off, and the person wasn't there to receive the package personally, so I said, okay, they won't sign for it, I'm going to take it back to the shop. Well, it turns out they needed that product the next day. And my boss came to me and said, if you ever get in a situation where they're not there to sign it, just leave it there, okay? Don't, even if they can't sign it. And it didn't even click to me he was giving me instructions. I did it again later and he was furious, and it didn't click to me until he was furious. He is running a business where he needs his people to get the product that they're paying for on time. And as much as that's part of my job, it's also very much part of his job because he's now got to deal with an angry customer. So if you can serve the people that you work for by understanding why do they want it this way, why are they upset about something right now in this situation, you will be serving them. And then if you get to a position where you're supervising other people, and you need to understand their positions as well, and understand them as human beings in order to help them and serve them through all that.
I don't know if any of you have anything you would like to ask any of them. Or any of you have anything you would like to ask any of them? Either way. Okay, Cassie, go ahead. No. Sir, do you have a question, Nathaniel, or are you waiting?
I think I have one. My name is Nathaniel Cooper, and I'm from Nigeria. My question has to do, during your high school years, did you have something or someone who was a challenge to you, and how did you overcome it?
A particular person, you mean?
Yeah, or
How do
maybe
you
a particular thing, a particular person that was a challenge to you, maybe?
overcoming a
Because-
particular
yeah.
challenge while in high school?
I can't say I had that because when I was here, I was the oldest class. Starting as a freshman, I was the only freshman.
Well, that you were the challenge.
I was
Mr. Master, how did you get over Mr. Smeese?
Yeah. So I didn't have that here, okay? But in other places, I think be honest and open to whoever it is that challenged you and say, hey, you know, we aren't getting along. What is it about me that you don't like? Or what can I do to help you convince yourself that I'm a better person than what you think I am, or whatever that is that you aren't getting along with. Once again, I think it goes down to communication and be honest, be open, but you know, tell them maybe sometimes you have to be vulnerable by saying, hey, maybe I pissed you off by doing this or whatever. If I can do something different to make you feel better about me, that's what I would like to do. I mean, that's as good as I can come up with, I guess.
I would say my 4 years of high school were kind of a journey. The beginning, I would get invited to all these things, kind of with the popular group or whatever, but then I'd get there and I didn't fit, and so I would walk home crying. I'm sure you remember that. But I tried so hard freshman year, maybe even into sophomore year, and then after that I was like, you know what, I'm done, and I didn't go out ever again that sophomore year probably. And then I stopped caring what other people thought, and I went out some. There was kind of the popular group and then the not at all, and I didn't fit anywhere, and that was okay. And you have to become okay with yourself and who you are, and not try to please everybody else. And it kept me out of a lot of trouble, probably. I was a pretty perfect high schooler. I never did anything I wasn't supposed to, which is good, and that's okay. But just don't fake it. Don't try and be something you're not, because a lot of the yeah, I think people regret a lot that they do in high school, and I don't want that for anybody, really.
I think people gravitate and will eventually respect those that are honest. Mine is more of a work experience. I had a guy working for me that just hated me because I was willing to call him out and tell him that he was not doing a good job. And he never had that before. He never had someone point the finger at him and say, "You are not doing your job correctly. You got to shape up." And you know, we had our go-arounds, but when I ended up quitting from this company where I worked with this individual, and the week that I left, he came up to me and he said, "You know, I'm going to miss you. We may have had our run-ins, but you know," he said, "I got to give you the respect you deserve. You're a great supervisor, and you know, I think if you go through a challenge with honesty and sincerity, I think you'll get through anything."
I think for me, maybe I was my own challenge. One of the things about my character that just drives me crazy looking back was, and I had someone tell me this when I was very young, you love, and this was when I was really little, you love playing with the older kids when they're around. You'll play with the young kids when the old kids aren't around, but when the older kids are around, you think they're cooler, so you play with them and ditch everyone else. And I was kind of like not just older, younger, but when less popular people were around, I would hang out and have a good time with them. And then when, for whatever reason, I was accepted by people more popular, I was excited to be with them and could easily ignore other folks. And I look back at high school, the things I regret the most is when I was a jerk about things. And so I think the lesson in that for me, as I see high school students now and as I look back, I think the thing to understand is that not as popular people are insecure about themselves because they're told they're not as popular as other people. But popular people act sometimes like popular people do because they're insecure about themselves and need some way to feel better about themselves. So the point is, everybody's insecure about themselves, and that doesn't change when you grow up. I still sit up here and my face is blushing because I'm sitting in front of a bunch of people. So the point is, see past maybe what they're saying at the moment or what they're doing and just try and love them either way.
Did you hear, I think in the last half hour, 35 minutes, two things come up an awful lot. One was communication, proper, and the other was relationships, which is ironic because we're supposed to be talking about school or work or whatever, and it comes back down to how do you communicate with human beings and how do you relate through communication. I'm going to draw this to a close. Would you please find some way at the moment to thank these folks? Cash would be good for Carolyn.
Or babysitting.
Just so you know, yeah, babysitting is good. Jason, you're into babysitting too, the thing you would take that?
No, I feel like
Jeff? No.